doesn't remember the first time they ever saw a legendary Pokemon. From the moment we encounter them, we want them on our teams. But when we finally do triumph and receive them, we are met with a cool but albeit disappointing blob of stats. Why do I say this? Because of one ability. Pressure. Pressure was on almost every legendary from generations 1 through 4, and frankly, it's a boring ability. Pressure essentially halves the amount of times an opponent can use a move. This effect is potent, but in practice, you won't even notice its effects, leading you to using what is essentially a Pokemon with no ability. While some legendaries were saved in later generations by receiving new hidden abilities, others weren't so lucky. Here's how I would change Pressure. Along with a visual upgrade and its normal effect, Pressure lowers all of the normal stats of the opponent to 0.9x their normal value. This is a big jump in power level, and suddenly it's a desirable ability rather than a forgettable one. Not to mention, now it's way cooler. In my Pokemon game, I plan to do similar changes to every underperforming ability with new visuals and stronger effects. In this video, I'll be showing 5 of my favorite changes I've made so far that either completely overhaul an ability or change it in such a way that it won't be discounted in favor of better options. At number 5, we have Klutz. Klutz is normally an ability that makes the user unable to use an item, but now it causes the user to incur the exact opposite effect of the item it holds. This is a game changer for Pokemon with this ability, as with the right item, you can get some serious value. While using the usual suspects will be only negative for these Pokemon, some items will give massive benefits. The big 3 I could see a Klutz Pokemon using are Iron Ball, Sticky Barb, and Lagging Tail. Iron Ball normally grounds the user and halves its speed, but now if we do the opposite of that, suddenly Iron Ball doubles the Klutz Pokemon speed and makes it levitate, causing it to be immune to ground moves. Sticky Barb suddenly becomes leftovers on crack, healing the user at the end of the turn by 1/8 of its health, which is double that of leftovers. Lastly, Lagging Tail normally causes the user to go last in priority always, but a Pokemon with Klutz and a Lagging Tail will always go first regardless of priority. Suddenly, a niche ability with few edge cases here and there where it's useful becomes super strong, and for the few fully evolved Pokemon who have it, an easy contender for its best ability. At number 4, we have Anticipation. Anticipation is a fun ability that causes the Pokemon to shudder when it switches into an opponent who has a super effective move or a one-hit KO move. Now, instead of just knowing that the opponent has a super effective move, the Pokemon with Anticipation can't be hit by the move unless the opponent switches out and then back in. If you are confident your opponent has only one super effective move against you, you can stand in front of it with no fear, as they are forced to use a different move or switch out. Most of the Pokemon with Anticipation also have 4x weaknesses, so this becomes a premier ability for them. At number 3, we have Gluttony. All Gluttony used to do was make the Pokemon eat its in a pinch berries at 50% health rather than 25. While this effect is decent, it is so boring. So now, a Pokemon with Gluttony won't be able to stop itself from eating its berry the second it would gain a benefit from doing so. As you saw, stat-raising berries are used on switch-in, but more niche berries, like Custat, which raises your priority, will be instantly used on your first move rather than when you are low. The possibilities of this new updated Gluttony are endless, making what was once a sometimes sometimes useful effect into a centralizing choice for any Pokemon lucky enough to have it. At number 2, we have Pickup. Pickup is mostly remembered for its use outside of battle, where people run around with a team full of pickup Pokemon and farm the items that they can find. Most people don't know, however, that pickup Pokemon will actually pick up a copy of a single-use item that another Pokemon used on the turn. While that feature remains and is prioritized, my change is that if no single-use item was used and you have no item, then at the end of the turn, the pickup Pokemon will search the area and find a relevant combat item from the area the battle is taking place in and equipping it. This can be an easy way to target items in certain areas and can really turn the tides of battle if you get an item that you need. At number 1, we have Swarm. Swarm is one of the most boring abilities ever, and is hardly ever useful, with it giving a 1.5x boost on power of bug-type moves when you're at 1/3 of your health. It's essentially Blaze, Torrent, or Overgrow, but for bugs. Now, however, I have completely removed its old effect and replaced it with a new one. Swarm now makes all of the users attacking bug-type moves have 3 hits, but with 40% of their original power. So, after all 3 hits, you will do 1.2x your damage with bug-type moves. Not to mention the fact that many bug-type moves have secondary effects that will now trigger all 3 times. One could imagine the possibilities with moves like Silver Wind and Signal Beam with their increased damage and essentially tripled odds of activating their secondary effects. But Panco, with all these changes, will I need to use external documentation to know what has changed? Before you get to answer that question, consider helping my small channel grow by subscribing so that you can stay up to date with my progress. Back to the question. Will you need a change doc or wiki to keep track of the changes? No, you won't. As an avid ROM hack and fan game enjoyer, I am extremely frustrated when having to keep track of all the changes that were made to existing things in the game, let alone completely new features or Pokemon that were added. It is so hard to remember the changes each dev makes that having a wiki open at all times is practically required. The first of 2 changes I will be showing in this video is the new and improved Pokedex. This screen shows everything that you need to know about a Pokemon that you would normally need to find on a wiki. Players can clearly see what changes I've made to the stats of Pokemon compared to before, along with their abilities, evolution line, and moves. Some features of the Pokedex are still a work in progress, as moves the Pokemon can learn have yet to be added, as well as the description feature that shows all non-battle related info about the Pokemon, like its flavor text, gender distribution, egg group, where you can catch it, and more, all appearing there. Before we dive further into the screen, we can click the question mark button and it will tell us the following info. First, it will tell us that every aspect of the screen can either be hovered or, if more info is needed, clicked. Hovering shows quick info on what you are hovering, and clicking it will bring you to a dedicated page with all the relevant information for the button you clicked. As you can see, hovering over the arrows on the evolution tree gives you info on what the symbol means. Next, it shows different colored stars and what their meanings are. A pink star means that something about the feature is changed compared to normal Pokemon games. As you can see, when I hover over Surge Surfer, the ability has been given an additional effect that allows for Alolan Raichu's water moves to paralyze. 2 other colored stars are also explained by the help button, with the orange star meaning that it's a new addition to the Pokemon for this game. You can see this with Electric Surge and Competitive, which Alolan Raichu normally doesn't get. The last star color is blue, and that indicates any feature that is entirely new to this game, like a custom move or ability that I have made. When moves are added to the screen, you will hopefully have 0 need for an external wiki, which I always dream of whenever I play a Pokemon fan game. If you can think of any other features that the Pokedex could include, please leave them in the comments, and I probably will add them to the game. The other feature that removes ambiguity from my game is the battle info screen. This screen has existed in Pokemon for a long time. But it's always felt slightly incomplete due to missing some features and having some unclear information. My info screen shows everything relevant to the battle at hand, with your opponent's Pokemon on top and your Pokemon below. The same hovering versus clicking interactions work here, and the colored stars will also be here. One of the big improvements to the screen from the base game is revealing information based on what you have seen in battle. In this screen, you can see that your opponent has used, and thus revealed, the move Thunder Wave, while its other 3 moves are still hidden as it hasn't used them yet. Its item was revealed when it was eaten, so you can see it slightly transparent just in case that information is helpful. Items that get revealed but can be inferred based on context clues will also appear here. For example, if a Pokemon is thrown in and doesn't take damage from Stealth Rocks, the screen will show that the Pokemon has heavy-duty boots. 2 buttons also show up on the screen that are never in regular Pokemon games. There's a button with a shield and one that says Stab. The shield shows what moves are super effective against the Pokemon, and the Stab button shows what the combined offense of the Pokemon's stab moves can hit super effectively, not very effectively, or not at all if it's relevant. These buttons don't show all the types that either hit it for neutral damage in the case of defense, or that it hits for neutral damage with its stab moves. The rest of the screen is pretty self-explanatory, with field effects general showing things that affect both sides of the field, like weather. Field effects opponent shows only the effects that only the opponent has to deal with, and it's the same for field effects you. With the information that you can see here at just a glance, as well as the hover versus click system, everything you need to know is in one easy place. If you want to keep up with my progress, please subscribe. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. I respond to all of those. With that, this has been Panco, and I will see you all next time.